So after several weeks of not a whole lot going on when it comes to Jaguars news, the last time the Jaguars played was against Kansas City Chiefs. Jaguars obviously lost, and since then, Trent Baalke and the crew have been kind of planning out their offseason, what they want to do. And now the Jaguars, some dominoes are really starting to fall now, and the Jaguars are starting to do some stuff when it comes to roster management. So we'll go ahead and go through a few of the moves that the Jaguars made. On February 24th, which was on Friday, the Jaguars went ahead and re-signed quarterback C.J. Beathard. Now, he's the first upcoming unrestricted free agent the Jaguars actually have signed. Some other key ones are Evan Ingram, Marvin Jones, Dewan Smoot, Arden Key, tight end Chris Manhertz, and Dan Arnold. Also, Dewey Wingard, Jawan Taylor, Trey Herndon, JaMychal Hasty, and Riley Patterson, all guys who are upcoming restricted free agents. And the Jaguars decide to take care of quarterback C.J. Beathard first. He signs a 2-year, $4.5 million deal. Now, this will be his second year with the Jaguars. He's had no starts as a Jaguars quarterback. Luckily, as Trevor Lawrence has been able to stay pretty healthy. He got some action in 2021 against the Bills after Trevor Lawrence went down with an injury. And then he eventually came back. Also, the same thing in 2022 where Trevor Lawrence went down during the Lions game, where all of us, that was a scary moment when Trevor Lawrence went down. Very, very scary. And then later on in cleanup duty against the Houston Texans. Now, really, the backup quarterback and C.J. Beathard, they really do have a huge role when it comes to the offense. I mean, the thing that's obvious is, like, look, during practice, you can't have what you call a drill killer. You got to have a quarterback that can effectively throw it to tight ends, wide receivers that can run the scout team offense. All that is stuff that he does. But also they're pretty important when it comes to just, sideline management, game planning, talking with Trevor Lawrence on the sidelines with a tablet, kind of being the offensive coordinator's right-hand man. They really do have a lot of duties when it comes to what goes on during game time. They always have the earpiece in. So, a lot of times, the quarterback, the starting quarterback, he wants certain backup quarterbacks to be with him. And it looks like, they don't really talk a lot about the chemistry between C.J. Beathard and Trevor Lawrence, but it's probably very, very strong. So it's good to kind of see him back, and hopefully he has a long-term role as a Jaguars backup quarterback, because he's a guy that if Trevor Lawrence does go down, you feel like he can maybe drive the ship a little bit. Now, he's not going to be able to carry us. I mean, it's going to be a huge drop off, but you don't feel super uncomfortable with it. And he does have some experience, especially with the 49ers. Now, the Jaguars also made 2 other contract restructures. Now, when it comes to restructuring players, who are the kind of players that you want to restructure? The kind of restructures you want to do are really for younger players and players that you want to have with the Jaguars for the future. Because what you're doing is you're really front-loading a lot of money, and a lot of times you're adding a year to the deal to kind of stretch out the whole entire, really what's going on when it comes to the cap. And the Jaguars, the first bit of news they made was restructuring Foyesade Oluokun's deal. What they did was they restructured him. They actually did add a year to his deal. And then all of a sudden, the Jaguars, through that, have saved $10 million off the cap in 2023, which is actually a pretty big amount, because he was going to cost $20 million against the cap this year. Now, it's not clear exactly what exactly they did, but if it was my prediction, and if I'm going to kind of sum it up for you guys, when they save money against the cap, a lot of times, like with this, for example, he's owed $20 million against the cap. What they might have done was they might have taken $15 million of that and gave it all to him as a bonus up front. And what they're going to do, they're going to stretch out that $15 million. So $5 million of that's going to go against the cap this year, $5 million the next year, and then $5 million the final year. So when you add it up, since it's $10 million against the cap, they probably took the original 5, added it to it, and made 10. And then really that's how you do it. And that's why a lot of times you want to restructure the young players, because if there's a player that's a really high cap hit, some guys might be like, I look at Brandon Sheriff, he has a really high cap hit this year. Would you want to restructure him? I don't think so, because there may be a plan where he's getting older, and maybe in 2024, the Jaguars aren't expecting him to be on the roster. So you might want to go ahead and take the cap hit this year and be able to cut him and save a lot of money next year. But with a guy like Oluokun, he's a very young player, man, 28 years old, back-to-back tackle leader in the NFL for both the Atlanta Falcons and then the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had a really good year this year. And, another thing that not a lot of people talk about, at least I don't think, I haven't been listening to a lot of Jaguar talk because I've been really busy lately, if I'm being honest. But he really had to do a lot of babysitting this year. I mean, he was the veteran starter, and then he was basically having Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma rotate outside of him. He was putting Devin Lloyd in position a lot of times. And, this is also his first year on this new defense. So, and then he still performed at a really high level. So, yeah, Oluokun, awesome year. He seems like a real staple of the Jaguars going forward, a real good part of this defense. And, I really hope with the maturation of Chad Muma and Devin Lloyd, hopefully he becomes, even better. So, we'll see how Oluokun. So, big ups to him. Now, a big one I want to talk about when it comes to restructuring is, look, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with owner Shad Khan. A big reason why I hate him is that since he's been an owner, he's been terrible at football hires. He basically wasted 10 years of my Jaguar fandom with just terrible head coaching hires and questionable decisions all over the place. But one reason why I do love him is that, look, while his biggest con is his decision of who he was, his football hires, the guys who he hires has been the worst part about him because he's typically hired the wrong guys. But whoever he hires, he always gives those guys the resources that they need. Like, he's always down to do these things where he's paying a lot of money up front for cap savings. Not a lot of owners want to do that, and not a lot of owners even have the money to do that. But Shad Khan is so rich, he's able to do it. So he'll give the money to Trent Baalke to say, hey man, go ahead and give this guy the money, so it's going to help us be better. So with that said, if Shad Khan has the right football people in place, he'll be a great owner. But if he needs to go run a head coach search or a GM search, good luck, because history shows that he has not been very good at that. But he's really the MVP for this type of situation. And later on this evening, the Jaguars decided to restructure Robertson-Harris. Now, he got a 3-year, $30 million deal, and he was actually going to cost $10 million against the cap this year. And, I remember I was on Spot Track and I was doing some roster moves, and, he was one of the guys that I clicked on. I'm like, look, cutting this guy's going to save you a lot of money, but I didn't really want to do it because, look, he was pretty good for the Jaguars this year. Maybe he was a little bit inconsistent, but when he played good, he was really, really good. I mean, he took over and dominated. And, some games he wasn't really around too much. But at the end of the day, interior defensive line is a huge need for the Jaguars, something they're really going to have to hit this offseason, whether it be, get some guys in free agency or, through the NFL draft. Interior defensive line and pass rush is going to be a huge, huge thing. And, he's another guy that Jaguars were going to want around for the long term. They're going to want to keep, a guy like this around because he's also relatively young. So, yeah, the Jaguars keep a good player, keep a player at a need, and also he's a great one thing I've noticed from the sounds of the games and a mic'd up is that he's just a really good teammate. I mean, I remember from the sounds of the game against the Chargers, he was telling Trevor Lawrence, like, do your thing, man. We got your back. Like, we got your back. Go out there, man, and do it. He wasn't like our good old friend Jalen Ramsey, where I'm not gonna go on Jalen Ramsey tangent. Just a lot of people are talking about him today. But Robertson-Harris, great teammate. He's got his players' backs, and that's the kind of guy that you really like on your team. So yeah, Roy Robertson-Harris gets a new deal, and with that one, not a lot of details around on that one. Like I said, a lot more is out on Foyesade Oluokun. By the time you watch this video, maybe on Sunday, maybe there's a lot more details out, but we don't have a lot on him so far. Now, some restructures, Christian Kirk, some restructures that I could see coming up, I should say. Look, Christian Kirk is a $23 million cap hit. I could very well see the Jaguars doing another thing with him where they try to lower that cap number, give him some bonus deals because that's a pretty big hit. Jamal Agnew is a guy that you'd want on the team longer. He's a $6 million cap hit. Not huge, but still you think he can maybe reduce that number down a little bit. Some guys that I probably would not. Cam Robinson is a pretty big cap hit. But with him, it's like, is this going to be the last year of his deal? We'll see with Jawan Taylor. If they re-sign Jawan Taylor, then it'll probably be Cam Robinson's last year, because I imagine if they bring back Jawan Taylor, he's going to be your starter at right tackle. Maybe there's a competition with Little and Cam Robinson at left tackle this upcoming offseason, and then best man win. Maybe the loser goes to left guard. We'll see. But that's probably a no at Cam Robinson. Brandon Sheriff, like I said, he's getting older. Fully Fatukasi, I don't know if they want to keep him around. Kind of struggled a little bit this year. Maybe it was because of injury. Darius Williams, cornerback, is a maybe. I don't know if they plan on, he had a good year when he moved to outside, but I don't know if the Jaguars are going to try to draft the cornerback early on this upcoming draft. We'll see. Some easy cuts. Shaquille Griffin's an easy cut, and some guys that we'll look to sign. I mean, look, there's a lot of guys. Maybe they bring back Arden Key on the low. Maybe Trey Herndon on the low, but Ingram and Jawan Taylor are going to command some big deals. It's sounding like Ingram has a deal pretty much wrapped up. Just needs to become official. I haven't been hearing as much on Jawan Taylor. Really hope we find a way to keep Jawan Taylor. I put on Twitter, I'm like, look, like I said, tell you guys all the time, I'm not a football expert. I'm not a Jaguars expert. I'm simply a fan that shares my opinions out here on YouTube. I'm no better than you. I'm the same exact person as you, except I share my opinions online. And a lot of times my fanboyness kind of clouds my objectivity, because I try to be as objective as I can, but at the end of the day, I do have bias. And with Jawan Taylor, he grew up an hour east of Orlando. He went to the University of Florida, got drafted by the Jaguars. He has a Jaguars tattoo on his leg, and he happens to be just a really nice dude. For those reasons alone, it makes me want to keep a guy. And, when it comes to football reasons, he was the best offensive lineman on the Jaguars this year. So, yeah, I really hope we find a way to keep him, because, I think it'd be a fun thing to do. But, yeah, with all that said, let me know what you guys' thoughts are. Enjoying making the video. I'll keep trying to make this offseason content. Go Jags.